You know, for decades, there's been this one problem in software security that has driven everyone crazy. It's this critical step that has somehow completely resisted automation, and it's been a massive manual bottleneck for as long as anyone can remember. We are talking about the security design review. And today, we're going to break down why this has been such an impossible problem to solve until now.
All right, so let me ask you a question. Right off the bat, your company runs security reviews on new features, right? But what percentage of those features do you think actually gets a proper in-depth security design review? Because for most companies, the reality of that number is, well, it's pretty terrifying.
Yep, 10%. For the vast majority of companies out there, we're talking about maybe 10% coverage. I mean, think about that for a second. That means 90% of the architectural changes, of the new features being built, are basically flying blind from a security design perspective. And that is a huge problem.
So why? Why is this still happening? Let's dig into why this has been such a stubborn, persistent bottleneck for so long.
Okay, it all boils down to a really simple numbers game. The ratio you're seeing here is pretty typical. For every 100 developers who are building stuff, shipping features, and moving fast, a company might have only 2, maybe 3 security engineers who can actually do these complex reviews. There is just no way that tiny team can keep up. It's not a matter of trying harder. It's mathematically impossible.
And this right here just perfectly shows you how far behind design reviews have fallen. I mean, think about code scanning. 10 years ago, sure, it was this slow manual thing you did maybe once a quarter. But today, it's completely automated. It runs on every single change, instantly. And security design reviews? They're still stuck back in the dark ages, still a manual, periodic process.
So why is this such a big deal? Well, because good security is like a block of Swiss cheese. You have to have multiple layers of defense, because any single layer is going to have holes in it. And that design phase, that's your very first and arguably your most important layer. Finding a flaw here before anyone has written a single line of code is so much cheaper and, honestly, way more effective than trying to patch it later when it's already in production.
So yeah, for years, this just felt like an impossible problem. But a huge technological breakthrough has completely changed the game. And it all comes down to AI's new ability to understand something called unstructured data.
So what are we talking about when we say unstructured data? It's basically the raw material of every software design. It's not neat, orderly code, it's human language. It's the design docs, the architectural diagrams, the conversations developers are having in Jira tickets, and that all-important tribal knowledge, the stuff that's not written down anywhere but just lives inside the heads of your most experienced engineers.
And this gets to the absolute core of the problem. See, computers have never been able to make sense of this stuff. For years, the only way to analyze any of it was to have a highly skilled and very busy human security architect act like a translator, reading all this messy human stuff and translating it into concrete security risks.
And that is where large language models, or LLMs, just change everything. They can do what was impossible before. First, they can just read and digest all this messy human stuff, all these different artifacts, and really understand the context. And second, once they have that context, they can apply security rules and logic directly to it. All of a sudden, that human translator is no longer the bottleneck.
Okay, but it's not as simple as just plugging in some generic AI and calling it a day. That's not a magic fix. To really make this work, we have to solve the next layer of challenges.
Because as soon as you start using AI here, you immediately run into 2 big new problems. First is explainability. The AI can't just be a black box. If it flags an issue, you have to know why. And second, and this is absolutely critical, is customization. How does the AI learn the specific quirks and context of your company? Let me give you a perfect example. Let's say your company has a microservice with the codename Stark, and everyone internally knows that Stark is your notification service. Well, a generic off-the-shelf AI has no clue what Stark is. It needs to be taught your internal language, your architecture. Without that context, the AI's advice is basically useless. It's just noise.
And just look at the difference this makes in practice. A generic AI might give a developer a warning like, "Do not log sensitive data." Okay, thanks. That's not super helpful, right? But a context-aware AI can say, "Do not log sensitive data. Instead, use our company's approved logging library to do this the right way. Oh, and here's the link to it." One is a vague warning, the other is real, actionable help that a developer can use right away.
And this is the real magic.
What this technology does is it takes all those security standards that are sitting on a digital shelf somewhere collecting dust, and it turns them into this automated, active superpower for your developers. It brings those standards to life, right when and where they're needed most.
So what this all leads to is a completely new way of working, a brand new workflow that perfectly blends the scale of machines with the deep expertise of humans.
So, here's what that smarter workflow actually looks like. Step 1. The AI acts as the first pass, automatically reviewing 100% of design changes. That 10% coverage problem? Gone. Step 2. The AI then risk ranks every single change, high, medium, or low. And step 3, this is the best part. Your human experts, your security architects, now get to spend their valuable time only on the really tricky, high-risk stuff.
And I want to be super clear about this. The goal here is not to replace your security team. It's to make them superhuman. It's about taking that human in the loop and putting them at the exact point where their expertise can have the maximum impact. It takes them from being a bottleneck to being, well, a force multiplier.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second and think about the really big picture here, because this shift points to something fundamental about how we're going to build and secure software in a world that is increasingly built by AI itself.
You know, for the past decade or so, we've all been focused on shifting security left, teaching developers to be secure. But now, as AI starts generating more and more of the actual code, the people prompting the AI, the product managers, the designers, they are now effectively developers, and they need security guidance too. Suddenly, the number of people who need security help in their workflow has just exploded.
And this all comes back to a really fundamental principle of risk, captured perfectly by this quote. The entity that's making the thing cannot also be the entity that's checking the thing. You can't have the builder be their own inspector. You always need an independent checker.
So if you're going to take away just a few things from all this, let it be these 3. First, coverage is king. Getting that first-pass automated review to 100% has to be the goal. Second, use a smart human-in-the-loop model. Use AI to focus your human experts where they matter most. And finally, remember that context is absolutely critical. A generic AI isn't going to cut it. You need tools that understand your company's unique DNA.
And that really leaves us with one big, important question to chew on. In the very near future, AI is going to be the primary maker of our digital world. The question for all of us is, how are we going to build the checkers?